Hi kids! Wow, what a week it's been, eh? Here we are going about our normal stuff, making plans, looking forward to things, and boom, back in lockdown. I really pray that you and your family are doing okay. I'm glad you've tuned in with us for our KE at Home together, because we're going to continue in our series that we started looking at the life of David. Remember last week we saw how things were pretty hard for David. His life was in danger, and he was probably pretty scared. But God had promised that he would be Israel's next king, and David trusted him to make that happen. Things aren't always good for us either, are they? Here we are in lockdown again. And COVID can be pretty scary. It can also be pretty annoying, as it stops us from doing the things that we want to do and had planned to do. But when we read about someone like David, it helps us to see how he responded in the tough situations and how God was faithful to him. It helps us to remember that God is faithful to us too, and focusing on God's promises helps us through. So I encourage you as a family today to take some time and to look up the promises on the collector cards that you made last week. If you weren't at KE, I have emailed them through to you. Perhaps as a family you can find some more of God's promises and share a few of them on our Facebook page or email them to me. I'd love to hear from you. So let's have a look at what has happened so far in the life of David. God tells Samuel that because of King Saul's disobedience, he has rejected him as king. God has chosen the next king, a shepherd boy called David, the son of Jesse. Samuel anoints David, and we read that God's Spirit was with him. David trusted God, and in his power went up against the giant Goliath. David killed Goliath with just a sling and a stone. Boys in the Giant Slayers group, do you remember your verse? You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel. David was made a high officer in Saul's army and was a success in everything he did because God was with him. All the people loved him, all that is, except for King Saul. Saul was being bothered by an evil spirit that made him depressed and angry. He was advised that getting someone to play the harp for him may help to calm him down. David was asked to play the harp for King Saul, and it did help to calm him down. But over time, Saul's attitude towards David changed. He was jealous of David and afraid of his success. He no longer thought of David as the wonderful giant slayer who had saved the nation. Saul let his anger and jealousy of David overcome him, and he tried to kill him several times. But David managed to escape each time. Jonathan, Saul's son, and David became very good friends. And today we will look at how their friendship, like all friendships, can be tested. But before we start, I have a question for you. What makes a good friend? Pause for a minute and have a chat about that in your families. Now let's start today's story. David was completely confused about why Saul wanted to kill him. Jonathan just couldn't believe it. His father usually told him everything, but not this. His father wanting to kill his best friend? No, it couldn't be true. He offered to do anything to help David, and so they devised a plan. The next day, David would be expected to attend a special new moon festival and eat at the king's table. But instead, he would hide in the fields until the evening of the following day. If the king commented on his absence, Jonathan would say that David had gone home to Bethlehem for a family celebration. Saul's reaction to this would indicate whether it was safe for David to come back or whether he would have to flee for his life. "Who will let me know if your father answers you angrily?" David asked. The two friends then went out into the field to work out the details of their plan. They renewed their promise to each other to be loyal, and if anything happened to either of them, to look after the other's family. Jonathan's plan was pretty clever, really. David was to hide behind a certain pile of stones. As soon as Jonathan knew what his father's reaction was, he would go to the field. Here's what he said to David. "I will then shoot 3 arrows at the pile of stones as if it were a target. Then I will tell my servant to go and find them. If I tell him, 'Look, the arrows are on this side of you, get them,' that means you are safe and can come out. I swear by the living Lord that you will be in no danger. But if I tell him, 'The arrows are on the other side of you,' then leave, because the Lord is sending you away. As for the promise we have made to each other, the Lord will make sure that we will keep it forever." The next day at the festival, Saul did notice that David was missing, but thought that something must have happened to prevent him attending. He made no comment. But the following day, Saul wanted some answers. Where was David? "There's a family celebration in Bethlehem," began Jonathan. "David asked if he could go." "What?" roared the king. "You are no son of mine, you traitor," roared the king. "Don't you realize that while David lives, you will never be king? Now go and get him. He must certainly die." Jonathan was determined to make a stand for his friend. "But why?" he demanded. "Why should he die? What has he done?" At that, Saul got so angry that he threw his spear at Jonathan, his own son. Jonathan knew for sure that David's life was in grave danger. He ran from the table, greatly distressed. The following morning, Jonathan went out to the fields as planned. He told the young boy with him to fetch the arrows he was about to shoot. The boy ran, and Jonathan shot an arrow beyond him. Jonathan shouted to him, "The arrow is further on. Don't just stand there, hurry up." When the boy returned with the arrow, Jonathan sent him back to the palace. After the boy had left, David came out from hiding, then fell on his knees and bowed his face to the ground 3 times. Both he and Jonathan were crying as they hugged each other farewell. They knew that they might never see each other again. "God be with you," Jonathan said. "The Lord will make sure that you and I, and your descendants and mine, will forever keep the sacred promise we have made to each other." And so they parted. David and Jonathan chose to be loyal friends, ruled by love for each other and not jealousy. There is a verse in Proverbs 17:7 that says, "A friend loves at all times." Jonathan was a good friend to David, but it meant going against his father to do that. Saul was jealous of David, and that turned to hatred, but Jonathan chose to love David and do what was right and helped him. He chose love, not jealousy. This story presents us with some really big questions. I wonder, what are some situations that you could be in where you find yourself being a bit jealous of a friend? Maybe when they get chosen for something and you don't. Or maybe when they do better at something that you like to be good at. Have a think about that and the other questions that I've sent in an email to you. Also, don't forget to learn our verses. You will have heaps of time to practice them. They're in the email that I've sent as well. Here is the first collector card you can earn, and there is another one coming soon. So stay safe and well, everyone. Don't forget our Facebook page is another way to connect with each other and share our learning together. Bye for now.